that album. Oh yeah, I did
All right, so you ready?
I'm ready! Oh, no, we're not doing that one today. Okay.
See what my eye does now? Check this out.
Yeah, I do.
It comes shooting in from one side.
No, I saw it blink like a normal human being. Oh, yeah, that's kind of cool.
That's weird. I hate my face now.
Well, thinking of Al's weird face, what he hates, I just want to welcome you to this special behind-the-scenes edition of Carnivore Theology.
Yeah.
The podcast that answers your questions to help you grow into a wise, skilled, world-changing follower of Jesus Christ. Today, we've ditched our irrelevant host, Steve Bastian.
Finally got rid of him, man. He just clings on.
And at least for a week, Al and I have the freedom to say whatever we want.
Right. Uninterrupted by any argument or frustration, people talking
Or
over
whininess.
each other. Man. Oh, wait. That might be us.
Oh, that's us.
Ah. Well, this isn't going to go well at all.
We're going to need Steve back.
Okay. Steve!
Oh, we sent him out an assignment.
All right.
Well,
so, first things first, we got to talk about the contest. Let's do this right up front. Okay, the contest things are ready. I have already recorded the next CT short. It'll be released very soon, which will have your secret phrase in it. We've already released a podcast that has the secret phrase, so you need both. If you go back to the instructions and to the contest podcast, you'll know this. So you have to get both secret phrases. You have to write them into a post, and you have to share one of those things, either the podcast or the CT short, and that's going to be out right away. So you guys will be able to get involved in the podcast, and the prize is we're going to send you either a paper or an e-copy.
Nothing.
No, careful, Jad. We'll be bound and contracted and whatnot.
That's why I said nothing.
We will be giving you the prayer that the hour that changes the world book. It's so hard to remember the title of that book.
The prayer that changed Chad.
There you go. It's a short book. And so the hour that changes the world, and it's by Dick Eastman, and it's a great book. We talk about it all the time, and I want you guys to be very excited about that. So please do the contest thing. That'd be fun for us, and it'd be fun for you. Okay. So, Chad, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're talking about a current event, something that we do on occasion here at Carnivore Theology and having a little bit of fun with it. The reason we're doing this is because it brings up a topic that has some importance, practically speaking, to the church. It's a religious freedom and a freedom of speech topic that's now being debated in our national parliament through a bill that has recently been introduced, which is titled M103.
A motion.
Now, yeah, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with how these work, government bills will come out with a C at the beginning of them. Bills that come out, or debates that come out with an M in them, what's happening is a private member's bill. So a private member's bill is that any member of parliament is able to bring before the parliament an issue to debate that could become the law of the land. Because it's not a government bill, it doesn't have some of the same government backing, but as far as I'm aware, or at least what I've read in the news reports, the Liberal government has thrown its support behind the principle of this particular bill. And what it's doing is it's coming in historically, or in the context of a response to the awful tragedy that happened in Quebec a few weeks ago with the shooting in the mosque. And so its target is to prevent what it's calling Islamophobia. And there are a few concerns that people have with this bill, not with the main idea of wanting to protect violence against any people, but in this case, particularly people who are Muslims, but with the way the bill itself is structured and some things that may be missed. But we needed an expert on this. So, Al, what did we do?
Well, obviously, we have access now because of our vast and incredible national influence to be able to go track down the experts.
Plus, we had air miles for Steve to travel on.
So we sent our roving reporter, Steve, out to a friend of the show named Andre Schutten, whose whole job is literally to read these things, understand them from a Christian perspective, and then we gave Steve a few questions to ask of Andre, and he's going to, and he went and recorded these previously, and then we're going to play them, so they're going to be good. But this is a really important issue, this M103 thing. Part of the issue is its phraseology. So are we against bigotry and racism and discrimination? Generally, yes, I am. Chad is mostly.
Wait.
And so we could have a long discussion. We could have a long discussion about whether or not we should be discriminating, right? Because that in itself is a very pointed word and very careful word.
I only discriminate against people named L.
Oh, that's important. Okay, so what we're going to do is we asked Andre some questions, and so he's going to answer those, and then we will give you a bit of commentary after that. Okay, so here is Andre and Steve in the first question.
Play.
We are hearing a bit about M103 in the news right now. Can you explain what this motion means to Christians now?
It's hard to tell exactly what Motion 103 means for Christians today. In one sense, it is a motion, and so it doesn't have the teeth or the implications that a law does, and yet at the same time, motions do usually signal a direction in which a government might take. Motion 103 uses terms that are vague or not defined, like the word Islamophobia. What exactly does that mean? We're not really sure. Does a Christian critique of another religious system merit the charge of Islamophobia? We're not really sure. Does this motion privilege one religion over another? In a sense, it does, since it names one religion, Islam, over other religions like Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and so on. So what does it mean for Christians today, right now? Not a whole lot, but it does send a signal that does have certain implications for Christians in Canada today.
Yeah, I mean, his point about it, like you said, it's a motion. It doesn't mean it. It's not changing the law next month. But man, I'll tell you what, reading it and hearing the implications that are potentially from it kind of freaks me out, to be honest. Because part of my job as a pastor is to help people discern truth from error, to find falsehood, to say this is biblical wisdom, this is worldly wisdom, and then, I mean, most of all, to point people to the one true God and differentiate Him, His Word, His will from all others. And so that's literally, that's literally my job. And of course, that it only references one religion, which is Islam. Mm-hmm. And now, am I saying that we should be racist or bigoted? No, but here's the thing. Okay, the inside the motion, it's quite vague in its language, which is what giving us a bit of pause here. And there uses a really crazy word in there where it says quell, where it talks about enforcement or quelling racism, quelling of phobias and religious discrimination. So how are you going to quell this? And am I going to get quelled? You know what I mean? Like it presumes that there's an Islamophobia out there, or this religious phobia that's on the rise. And so if people start getting worried about that, they're going to have to go find out who's doing this thing, who's being phobic. And I guarantee that includes Christian preachers like me who will say out loud, and I have a blog where all of my words are written down that I preach, that says that Allah is not God and Muslims should convert to Christianity to save their souls. So will I be allowed to say that from the pulpit if this becomes law? I agree, we sound paranoid, but man, that's troubling.
Now, I guess... Yeah, from my perspective, there's going to be a little bit of a movement here. One of the things, and let me introduce a term to our listeners that they maybe don't know. There's something called virtue signaling, which is one of the major things going on in the world today. It basically is the easiest way to explain it, I think, it's a way for someone to identify that they're on the right side of history according to whatever the most popular current fad is today. So it doesn't necessarily represent a truly deep-held conviction. It doesn't necessarily represent how things are going to play out in the real world, but it's the thing you ought to say. It's the right thing to say. So you're put into a situation and somebody is, your kid, somebody, there's two kids are fighting, and you say, guys, what do you say to each other? And the kids go, sorry. Okay, they've kind of done what you expect them to do with attitude. Now let them grow up, and they'll do the same thing, but they're going to hide the attitude. and it's going to be called virtue signaling. And I think a lot about this bill is basically this is a way for people to say, hey, I'm on the side of anti-Trump forces, basically. I'm on the side of anti-discriminatory forces. I'm on the side of, and we're for this thing, and we're going to protect everyone against this idea of Islamophobia. And so, because it seems to me to be a virtue signaling device, and that's the way all the media and everybody's picked it up, I'm not sure what kind of teeth, as Andre said, it's actually going to have. Even if this motion went through, it may actually mean nothing in the real world. And that's one of the things that we got to think about sometimes is you don't need to panic over anything anybody says. And we also have some very robust protections built into other laws and our charter about our free speech rights. So you might not have to be quite as worried, at this stage.
Well, let's hear what Andre has to say.
Yep.
Does this mean there's now going to be legal favoritism for one religion in Canada?
What I find interesting about M103 is that if it were about a Christian group or about Christophobia, then I don't think we would be seeing the kind of support for the motion like we are seeing now. And that, I think, is amusing, if not concerning. We would expect the government to say, if this motion were about Christophobia and about the pressure that's been put on Christian institutions, particularly through things like limitations on conscience rights of Christian doctors as it relates to assisted suicide, or limits on a Christian law school as it relates to Trinity Western University, that if there were a motion that spoke specifically about Christians feeling pressure and Christians feeling discrimination and so on, we could expect that the government and many media talking heads and others would say, well, we can't privilege one religion over another. But today it seems that it's quite all right to do that for Islam. And I find that amusing. It's not really of much consequence, but I do find it amusing.
Yeah, I don't know if I find it amusing. I mean, I'm clearly not an expert here, but okay, let me tell you about something that happened just a little while ago. First, I've never heard the word Christophobia, and I really hope that doesn't become a word and a thing that we see more in the news now. It's a phrase I've never heard, but okay, just the other day, there was an opinion piece written on the CBC website by a guy named Neil MacDonald, which says things like that the shooter in Quebec was probably a Christian, judging from his name. That's quote, probably a Christian, judging from his name. And then it goes on to say that every single Canadian mass murder in modern history was carried out by a Canadian-born white Christian man. Okay? It says that. And it ends with this crazy pants quote that says, will Donald Trump begin banning nationalist Christians from Canada? It's crazy. It's just crazy that I'm reading what I see as Christophobia on the CBC website. Now, an MP from CBC from Alberta has actually already filed a complaint, and he kind of took the argument apart, saying, "Look, here's the actual religious views. None of them were self-identifying or practicing Christians in the last 9 mass murders that happened in Canada." Mm-hmm. But to me, the troubling thing, I don't find it amusing. It's troubling when you see articles on CBC that literally look like they're demonizing Christianity. And then you find something coming through Parliament and a motion that says, "Yeah, but you got to be careful. We got to be nice to the Muslims. We got to be nice to Islamic people." Yeah, that to me is scary. As a guy who could potentially go to jail, you know what I mean? Because I'm the upfront guy.
Yeah, and again, I would say,
you talk about signals, man.
Yeah, no, it is signaling, and it is. I think this is why people have concerns about this bill.
Yeah.
But the conservative opposition put forward a motion to amend the motion, and basically within there, it's virtually identical with very minor changes. But rather than specifying Islam, they speak about religious or other minority groups. Rather than specifying Islamophobia, they specify incitement or action of violence against individuals because of their particular affiliations. So the big difference is that what happened in the mosque was a horrible thing, and some people were attacked by someone who's deranged. And we want to stop that. We want to say that we don't approve of that. Of course, in a sense, we already do. He's going to jail. But we don't want to say, because it's a very different class of thing, that people can't criticize Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or secularism, because we want to have a free marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
And when
in other words,
you get
a
into
democracy.
Yes, in other words, we want to keep our democracy free.
Yeah.
Our tradition has such strong roots in that I would be very surprised if our government just twisted the knob to turn the corner tomorrow. But what things like this motion do is it sort of sets a sort of general consensus in the culture that maybe these Christian guys aren't so good. And we are seeing that the favorable, recent Pew poll shows that favorability for all religious groups have gone up in the last 5 years. With the exception of evangelical Christian, it's gone down. And I would attribute that to media presentations. And you don't want to marginalize and go after any group like that. We shouldn't do it to anyone. And of course, we don't want it to happen to our group.
Well, remember, we talked about professionals before, lawyers, doctors, teachers, and how difficult it is for a practicing evangelical Christian, a faithful Christian, to break into this stuff. I mean, you've got lawsuits against, lawyer schools that are trying to make Christian lawyers, and they're going, no, you're not even allowed to be a lawyer, right? Doctors, where they say, okay, listen, you can be a doctor, but you have to be, you have to kill people. You got to be okay with that. You got to be able to kill babies and old people. Otherwise, you can't be a doctor. That's mandatory, right? Teacher. Okay, you could be a teacher, but here's what you can't do. You can't teach the Bible. You can't talk about religion. You can't present, creationism as an option. But so, in other words, they're saying evangelical Christians, no, you can't be professionals. That's already happening, and then to see it being pushed as an idea in the government of enforcement, and that word quelling kind of freaked me out.
Yes. Now, I would say I wouldn't even so much limit it to that. I think it's a broader thing. I think what's happening in all those issues that you brought up is there's actually the establishment of a state religion of secularism. And the current body of ethics and the current secular direction of the state is the only acceptable religion. Now, France has a secular constitution. Their constitution states that they're a secular nation. And so they operate on those principles, and we see what happens in the way they interact with Islam, with Christianity, with various groups out of that. We don't have a constitution like that. But what our current government seems to be doing is assuming that we're France. And so rather than holding to our traditions, they're trying to establish a new religious establishment. I think that's where it's problematic. If it was fundamentalist Christians who are taking over or fundamentalist Muslims who are taking over, people would be really up in arms. What we really have now is fundamentalist secularists who are taking over and trying to enforce their dogma on everybody else. They're not promoting open neutrality, multiculturalism. They're promoting their view, and it's their way or the highway. Fortunately, the courts have sided with Canada's constitution, history, integrity, and tradition, and I think the common consent of people are pretty open to. Most people are pretty easygoing in our nation.
Well, you've got some legal background now. I got a question for you. And why do we even need this? I mean, we have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We have, I'm pretty sure murder is still illegal. I'm guaranteeing mass murder is still illegal. Why would we need to? Why would this even come up? Like, why wouldn't it be? No, we've already got this covered. We're not allowed to discriminate. We're not allowed to shoot people. Like, why would we need? Why would this get any traction at all?
Yeah, that's why I said earlier. I think this primarily has to do with virtue signaling, rather than any substantive legal rationale. It is difficult. We constantly tweak our laws when we see that there's a bit of a loophole or something going on. And the whole history of the common law tradition has been kind of evolution to new circumstances based on old principles.
There ain't no loophole here, man. The guy walked in and shot people because he hated them. We've got that covered in our law.
Yeah, but I think what this law is saying, what the argument is, and particularly in the political sphere that we're in today, they're saying certain politicians, they're saying the sort of impetus behind American politics and some Canadian politicians, they're saying the kinds of things they're saying directly led to this. Now, I would personally disagree with that. I don't think that's true, not in the circumstances that the media at least has reported on this case. But they're trying to deal with that rather than the actual actions. They're saying people are stimulating people to action by the things they're saying and doing, and we shouldn't allow that. Just like we don't allow
Christians. are inciting violence among their members towards Islam?
No.
How? What?
No, and this bill's not saying that. This is particularly going after the Trump phenomena and particularly targeting. I think it's targeting politicians in Canada like Kelly Leach, who have talked about supporting Canadian values. I'm not certain that what these people are saying even would directly lead to this kind of thing. Even on the assumptions that are kind of being given behind this bill. But that's what this group that's bringing the bill forward is suggesting. Yeah. It's kinds of speech that they're very worried about. That's where it concerns me the most, however, because it's in our political speech that we need to have the most freedom. And that actually is the oldest of Canada's tradition. Long before the Charter of Rights ever existed, we protected people's ability to speak on political issues and in the political realm with freedom because, as the courts have said, the very nature of our democratic freedoms demands and relies on this. So even though I don't necessarily like what people are saying, I want to make sure that we can say it, especially in the realm of politics.
The politics and religion. I mean, that's been
yes, but this bill really isn't an attack on religion. It's an attack on political speech. It may have impacts to religion. I'd be concerned about that.
Yeah.
But it's not targeting that at this time. So
well,
that's a different issue.
I guess my point is that, when we talk about fundamental requirements and fundamental things that we need to be able to have in our society, it's the idea of free dialogue and free debate about any topic. We don't get to invent our own facts. We don't get to beat somebody up because we disagree. We get to have an open debate because of our society.
Right.
And that should include things like religion. I think it's absolutely right that an Islamic person or a Buddhist person or a Christian can all sit in a room and have a healthy, even vigorous debate about what they believe and walk out disagreeing with each other. And that's okay. And we should be allowed to do that. There should be no rules that come down and say, you can't debate this stuff, or one of you guys is wrong and you're not allowed to talk. As we're seeing in some universities, as we're seeing in some places of higher learning, where there are voices that are no longer allowed to be invited, right?
Right.
As in, you can't even come and present your ideas anymore. You can't not only just be a teacher here, but you can't even come as a guest lecturer. You can't come at all because you represent something we don't like. And therefore, your voice isn't allowed here.
And I do think that is a little disturbing, and there's been a lot of double standards in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah,
and there are privileged groups that are being allowed in, but in a sense, it's a bit of a reversal of privilege. Historically, in Canada, Christians have had a lot of freedom, and while we're losing some of those privileges now, I don't think we need to panic about that at present.
I'm just thinking, that being said, it's not like I would like the government to mandate that I have to allow my pulpit to be used by anybody either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, exactly right.
That would
and so,
freak me out.
There's a lot of balance in here. I think this is not a concern for panic today, but I think it is a concern because it does impact our overall values and it has some future issues.
Yeah. Okay.
What else does Steve find out for us?
No, the next part is our closer. So let's. Here's
what? No, we haven't listened to all three, have we?
No, okay. Here. Fine. Listen.
Where can we find out more about M103?
We have a detailed article analyzing M103 on our website, arpacanada.ca. Just search M-103, and you'll be able to find an analysis by one of our lawyers, John Sikkema.
Thanks, Andre.
I'm glad we went through that extra piece there.
Exactly.
And,
but it's not a long article. It's an interesting article pointing out some of the loopholes and some of the issues.
We'll have to look it up.
Some of the things that they. Some of the reasons that they have concern. It's worth a look. It's worth a listen. And as we're saying to you all out there in listening to our podcast and watching online, this is something to pay attention to. As Chad said, don't freak out. This isn't a reason to get your guns and head for the hills. It's simply, but we think you should be paying attention to it, and we'll keep paying attention to it too.
Yes, and I will recommend as well, Barbara Kay in the National Post recently wrote a great article entitled, actually, One Needn't Be a Hysterical Bigot to Have Concerns with M103. I found that a very helpful article, and so I'd recommend that one as well.
Excellent. I'll link to both of those on the website. All right, Chad, I think that's enough. We didn't come to any conclusions, and we left it all up in the air. So, well done. I think we've managed to accomplish nothing here this morning. I think this is why we need Steve. Maybe he helps us.
He helps us to get somewhere.
All right, everybody. On that bombshell, I guess we'll have to go.
We're like university professors, El.
Yeah. But better paid.
I don't know. The Alberta Sunshine List has put out all a number of the employees at my university, and it's not so bad.
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Not so bad. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Then I take it back. All right.
They're on the Sunshine List. Let's just put it that way.
Bye, everybody.
Rosso.
Hey, thanks for watching our Carnivore Theology recording of our podcast. Check out down below. See the subscribe button? Click on that if you haven't done it before. We would love if you clicked like, commented on the video. That'd be awesome. Also, over here, check out our Facebook page, our Twitter page, and also, if you want to ask us a question, we'd love it when people use the SpeakPipe page. So leave us an audio question. Thank you again for watching, and keep your eyes on the cross.